In today's video, we will be covering some items that are incredibly important to remember whenever you are doing things in the game. These aren't going to be focused on overly expensive things, more so just things that you can either grab off the Grand Exchange or unlock without too much difficulty whatsoever. These are going to be things that are incredibly useful, and if you didn't know about them, you will be missing out a lot, so I thought it'd be a useful video to make, especially for newer returning players and especially with double XP just around the corner. So with that being said, let's go. Now this video list is in no particular order, and it's going to cover things from skilling to PVM and just other random things as well, so make sure you stick around for all of them. But to start off, we are going to be talking about charming potions. Charming potions are incredibly useful things that I actually didn't know existed until far too late. These released back in 2019, and I probably could have been using or taking advantage of these way before I actually found out these are a thing. Now what they do is they increase the base number of charms dropped by a monster by 1, meaning that if you're farming things like, for example, water fiends, these pretty much double the amount of charms that you're going to be getting there every single hour. But for the fact that you just drink 1 dose every 6 minutes and then you get an extra charm from every single thing that drops a charm is actually crazy. This is a massive time saver, and when I farmed all of my charms to get 99 summoning, I kind of wish that I knew these were a thing, because they were a thing. I just had no idea that they were a thing until researching for videos later on. So I have covered these in the past, but they fit nicely on this list for sure. So if you are going to be going out and grinding through your summoning to get tons of charms, make sure you are using these. It is absolutely worth the time. Another really easy one to take advantage of that I actually have to use all the time because otherwise I completely waste this is the Spirit Attraction Potions. What the Spirit Attraction Potions do is it attracts spirits. More specifically though, all of the things that you want to collect while you're AFK skilling that you kind of don't want to have to pay attention to, but you feel like you're missing out on, if you don't actually pay attention, this will do that for you. And it doesn't just cover like your Seren spirits or your divine blessings, it literally covers a whole list of things, my favorite probably being the chronicle fragments because I can never be bothered picking these up. But of course you can see all of the things that this works on screen right now, and the price of these aren't all that expensive considering how useful they are. So if you are going to be AFK skilling and you are using things that can get you the Seren spirits, or you're doing anything that affects the list here, it's probably going to be worth you taking advantage of these. No one wants to miss a Seren spirit when they're AFKing because you know for a fact that specific one was going to be your Hazelmir's signet ring. Next up, we are going to talk about power bursts. However, when I mention power bursts, most of you probably think of the power burst of vitality or the power burst of acceleration. Well, I'm not going to talk about those because we talk about those a million times in videos. While they are useful, power bursts in general, there is actually quite a few more than just those ones, and there is some very useful effects across all of those as well. A lot of people, especially if you're just getting into skilling, you may not realize that there's actually some really good, useful power bursts potions to take advantage of. For example, the power burst of sorcery will give you 10 seconds where the runes per essence multiplier is doubled. The power burst of masterstroke allows your next 4 hammer swings to massively increase the progress of smithing. You have the power burst of opportunity, and this one doubles the effect of rock opportunities when mining, and it will also double the effect of time sprites for the next 15 seconds. Then you have the power burst of feats, which makes it so that your familiar's special move costs no points for the next 10 seconds as well. Power bursts are definitely something that you don't want to forget about because for the price of them, it is honestly a very easy buff to actually take advantage of, so don't forget about them and take advantage of them. Another one just like power burst that a lot of people seem to forget about are actually the perfect juju potions. Now for this one, I'm not going to go through the full list and explain what these do because there's actually quite a few of them and they have many different effects. But you have perfect juju potions for woodcutting, farming, mining, smithing, agility, prayer, herblord, engineering, fishing, and then you have a perfect plus which just gives you all of them together. Each of them provide different buffs for each of the skills, so if you are going to be looking at training any of these skills, just check if there's a perfect potion for them because they're absolutely worth taking advantage of. I'll have links to all of the information on everything mentioned in this video, so if you do want to just check on whether any of these can be useful to you, you'll be able to find a link directly to the page where all of the information on this is in the description. But as an example of just one of these, the perfect juju fishing potion actually gives you a 5% increase to fishing catch chance. So I mean that alone, that's pretty good. Next, we're going to talk about a very specific aura from the War's Retreat shop. In here for the combat auras, people usually tend to go for Reckless, Maniacal, or the Berserk aura because these are actually the best in slot auras for each of the combat styles. However, there is an aura in here that is definitely worth investing in, and if you are someone who is struggling to gather up a ton of these points and you are looking like bosses are kind of kicking your ass a little bit, then the Dark Magic aura may be worth investing in first. A lot of people get misled by this because it's called Dark Magic and they believe that this only works for the magic combat style, but it doesn't. It actually works for all combat styles, and for the amount of points that it costs, it's actually really good. This will set you back 12,500 marks of war, but the way it works is whatever combat style you are using, it will have a chance every time you deal damage to the target to inflict an extra 4 hits whenever it does activate of that same damage type to the target. Now, I'll put on screen the table from the wiki that shows how much damage increase you're actually going to be kind of expecting to get from this, but it is looking on average between 5 and 6% of a damage increase just from using this aura, which for some people may not sound like a lot of damage, but believe me, people will be paying billions of gold to be able to get this much of a damage increase if it came in the form of an item on the Grand Exchange. It would be incredibly valuable. Why do I say this, or how do I know this? That's because the Shard of Genesis Essence actually buffs you between 3% and 9% depending on your accuracy of the target that you are attacking, and this right now is going for 2 billion GP. So yeah, you can imagine how valuable 5% is. So if you do find yourself struggling to get the boss kills quick enough or consistent enough to get your hands on Maniacal, Reckless, and Berserk aura, then this definitely could be one of the ones that you want to invest in first before you do that. And like I say, it works for all combat styles as well, so you don't really need to worry about if it matches up. Another great combat item that a lot of people seem to miss over is the ranged item Mechanized Chinchompers, or I guess any Chinchompers depending on your level. Chinchompers still work even with the evolution of combat and also while using your abilities. These used to be just something that you would use in the past for leveling up range really quickly because you could kill multiple targets at once, but the mechanized Chinchompers now are actually really damn good if you are clearing things that require AoE. For example, if you're running through an elite dungeon, then you definitely want to bring these if you have ranged. This applies to all of your abilities as well, meaning if you use Chinchompers and then you use, I don't know, rapid fire or snapshot or anything like this, all of the targets around that will also be hit with the ability too. You can do a crap ton of damage with mechanized Chinchompers. The speed difference that you're going to be able to clear dungeons and anything with AoE while using these is going to be massive compared to not having them. So if you don't use them, give them a go. Chuck them in your inventory, use them when you are only clearing the AoE stuff, and then swap back to your other weapon whenever you are killing like a single target boss or something like that. It's also worth mentioning that you'll want to pair this with an offhand range weapon as well. So if you do have like, I don't know, Ascension crossbows for example, you will still want to have that offhand equipped when you are using mechanized Chinchompers. Another item really not to be forgotten are the XP capacitors, and I again didn't know these existed until way too late, which is a bit gutting because they're very useful. You can buy these on the Grand Exchange, and the way that they work is they just sit in your inventory, and whenever you gain experience points in any of your augmented items, whether it be skilling or whether it be combat, you will actually get 100% additional XP, meaning you're getting double the XP. Now, the reason this is important is because it allows you to level up those items a lot quicker. Whether you want to level them up to get the extra benefits at level 20, or whether you want to level them up to siphon the XP to get invention XP, or whether you want to level them up to get to level 9 so that you can disassemble that item so you can get certain components for invention perks. These are insanely useful. So if you don't use these, or if you've been leveling stuff up or doing invention and not taking advantage of these, then you absolutely are going to want to be doing so, and the difference is pretty damn noticeable. The last one that we're going to end on in this video, there's many more we could talk about, but this one specifically I figured was worth mentioning here, is actually, sadly, an MTX item. However, you don't have to buy these to take advantage of them at all. And I'm talking about the Pulse Core buffs. Now, the reason I'm talking about these isn't because it gives bonus XP or anything like this. Nope. The reason I'm talking about this is because you can actually use this to gain access to content that you aren't actually ready for right now. What I mean by this is, for example, you could start the Magister early without the Slayer requirements if you just were close enough to be able to boost it with the pulse cores. There's many other things in the game that allow you to boost your actual skill level to be able to access content that you haven't achieved that level for just yet. For example, making overloads or making a different sort of potion, you can boost your herb lore level by using these as well. And there's many other ways in the game to boost your skills too, but these are the best option and probably the easiest as well. The way that you take advantage of this is just by heading to the Fort Furinthry, where everybody is using their pulse cores, of course on world 84, so you can take advantage of how many are going off, and then just stand in the center of it and just allow them all to hit you until you get the boost and the skill that you actually want. Once you receive that boost, you can then take advantage of whatever content it was that you wanted to until that boost expires. Now, over time, the boosts are going to sort of degrade away. If you get 10 levels, you'll drop one every 60 seconds. However, the way this works is it decides that 60-second mark when you log into the game. So what you want to do is the second you see that you've got the boost that you wanted, you want to hit the lobby button, log out to the lobby, and then immediately log back in. This will then reset the 60 seconds that you have before you have to lobby again. So as long as you lobby every, say, 55 seconds, maybe 50 to be safe, you can do whatever you want to do, whether it's craft potions, whether it's go through a place that you can't normally access. You can take advantage of this and then lobby again, and you can repeat the process. But pulse cores are absolutely something you can take advantage of just by standing near other players to get the boost. And that brings us to the end of this one. Hopefully you found it useful. Hopefully you can check off a few items that you haven't been using. And if you have been using these and you know about all of them, just keep in mind, this sort of video is for the newer players, the people getting into the game still, or people like me who just did everything without checking at once and missed out on a lot of bonus stuff. If you guys can think of more, leave them in the comments, because I can definitely probably do part 2, maybe part 3 of this as well. Otherwise, I'll catch you all in the next one. See you later, guys. Bye.